The GW1 Template Team is starting to take shape, and in this video I'm going to reveal exactly what that team looks like, tell you the players that I think are essential for our drafts, and importantly the ones that are highly owned that should be avoided. So you're going to want to make sure you stick around for this one. Make sure you drop a like on the video. We're aiming for 200 this video. I know you legends could do that, and if you can, smash the subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for getting the channel over 5,000 subs. So without further ado, let's get into this template team. Yes guys, okay, so first of all I wanted to show you a draft of the highest owned players in the game, irrespective of budget. So this team here is actually 111 million. I'm just going to quickly go through the players that are the highest owned, just to give you an indication on which ones I think are essential, and which ones that I really don't think need to be in your FPL team. So kicking off with Ramsdale, who is the highest owned goalkeeper in the game so far at 28%. And I totally understand why managers are going for Ramsdale. He's fantastic value at 5 million, especially when we look at Alisson and Edison at 5.5 million. I think Ramsdale feels like a really nice entry point at 5. And importantly, getting that investment into the Arsenal team means that you can keep the defenders empty for you to buy in, like a Stupinan, like a Shaw, like a Trent. You're not occupying one of those Arsenal spots in defence, because I don't think they necessarily are as attacking as what these other three on the screen you can see. So Ramsdale I really like with the opening fixtures. The one downside I would say is probably just there are 4.5 millions available, like Pickford, like Leno, like Flecken at Brentford as an example. So I really like Ramsdale. I understand why managers are going there, and he's currently a debate for my draft. But I think there are 4.5s also available for your teams. But the one player that I think is essential in the goalkeeper department is West Ham's Areola at 4 million. He's 27% owned, but importantly, he actually has a potential of being the #1 in the West Ham team. So at 4 million, he's just easy. Lock him into your team. You don't have to worry about your other goalkeeper department then. And then if he is the starting goalkeeper in game week 1, you have a lovely headache to have in your drafts. I just don't think you need to avoid this one at 4 million. Moving into the defenders, and I think these three kind of make sense. Stupinan is currently 52% owned, and I understand why. Brighton have fantastic fixtures in the opening three, and I think there is potential for both attacking and clean sheet returns for a Stupinan and Brighton defenders. Now, why I like the 5 million price point for a Stupinan is because he offered attacking potential last season. I think we all know that there's actually a higher ceiling for him that he could have reached last year, and hopefully this is the year where he can actually achieve that. Now, we don't know how they're going to perform without McAllister and without Caicedo, but because of the fixtures, because of De Zerbi's Brighton, I just think it's an easy player to put into your teams. And then after game week 4, when the fixtures start to turn, we can either do an early wildcard to move him out or simply leave him in if he does offer fantastic attacking potential. So while he's not essential, I think it's very hard to ignore now that he's surpassed the 50% ownership. Luke Shaw, 5.5 million defender at 35%. Now, again, Luke Shaw is not essential for your teams, but I do think the 5.5 million price band is. James, Chilwell, Ben White, just to name a few, are at this 5.5 million price band. And I do think one of those is going to emerge as one of the best value defenders in the game. And Luke Shaw could easily be that man. We have to remember that he is a fantastic attacking fullback, really good on the bonus points. And Man United are actually good defensively, which helps out from a clean sheet perspective. The fixtures are mixed, but I think with Luke Shaw, he is a very safe option at that 5.5 million to go for. I think then the Chilwells and the Jameses are a bit more riskier, but probably have that higher ceiling for your team. So I think Shaw leads the way at 5.5 million defenders for me right now, and I understand the ownership in him. And the other one, which is probably split in the community right now, is Trent Alexander-Arnold at 8 million. 34% owned. I've seen a lot of managers go with, and I've seen a lot go without. The reasons why I like him is because you're getting yourself the most expensive defender in the game. And the reason why I like doing that is because he's so considerably more expensive than anyone else that after 2 game weeks, after 3 game weeks, if we're seeing him play a very, very refined right back role, not being very creative, you can come down to any defender in the game. If you were to avoid him, you then having to go up from likely a 5.5 million defender is going to require one or two things, either lots of money in the bank or 2 transfers where you downgrade a player in your team, most likely a midfielder, to then accommodate Trent in your team. For me, although I understand why people don't want him, I think going with him is just a safer pick, and then you can maybe look to deviate away from him in the coming game weeks if he isn't showing value at 8 million. I still think he's a fantastic FPL option. And for me, he's been in every single one of my drafts. The other two defenders, Trippier at 34%. I'm going to say this one's an avoid. A little bit controversial for some, but I just think at 6.5, there are so many better defenders at 1 million or 1.5 million cheaper that this one can be avoided. And Newcastle's fixtures are a little bit mixed to kick off the season. And the other one is Botman. Probably one of the leading 4.5 million defenders, 34% owned, kind of says it on the tin there. One thing I would say is someone like Botman at 4.5 million can be a little bit risky from a price fall. If Newcastle were to get off to a bad start, some managers may move away from Botman to either go down to a 4 million or the better 4.5 million. And at that ownership, we could see a very quick price fall from Botman. And if he does go down to 4.4, you can be a little bit stuck on what player that you can buy into your squad. So I would just say a little bit of caution if you are going for Botman in your squads. But let me know your thoughts in the comments what your on the highest owned defenders right now in the game. Moving into midfielders, this is where it starts to get tasty, of course, in FPL. Saka leading the way as the highest owned midfielder right now at 50%. And to be honest with you, he comes as close to essential in my eyes as it gets. Saka, I believe, is the best Arsenal investment. First and foremost, he is alongside Odegaard as the most expensive, so you can come down to Martinelli or Havertz if they were to hit the ground running. And I really do think at least one Arsenal midfielder is essential in your drafts. The reason why I like Saka on penalties, of course, a brilliant attacking threat from both a goal scoring and a creative perspective, and also a guaranteed minutes in this team. I don't see any of the new purchases that Arsenal have made hinder his minutes. I think he's just even more locked than he first was last season. 50%, absolutely fine with that, and I understand why managers go in there. Now, Rashford at 40% is a little bit more controversial. We actually have alternatives in that Man United team that are split in opinion right now. 8.5 million for Bruno Fernandes, 9 million for Rashford. I think essentially what you're getting is Rashford, who is much more of a goal threat compared to Bruno Fernandes, who is a creative force in that Man United team and simply going to play every single minute of every single game. To be honest with you, I think if budget was no option, I would go for Rashford just because of the goal threat that he has, and we still don't know who has got penalties in that team. But what I would say is this, if you are building your draft and you need to save a little bit of money, I wouldn't worry about going for Bruno Fernandes at all. If you need that 0.5 million saving, go for Bruno Fernandes. I think the gap there is fine to make that downgrade, as Bruno Fernandes, I think output-wise, is going to still be very consistent. I would just like to see in pre-season how Mason Mount impacts Bruno Fernandes, whether that's positively or negatively. Into the other midfielders, Mitoma, a very popular pick at 39%. I understand why people are going for the Brighton man. The fixtures at the start are fantastic. And I think, again, he is the safe pick in this Brighton team. And Ciso is the very tempted one at 5.5, but I think a rotation risk. I think Mitoma is as locked as it gets for minutes in that Brighton team. I have absolutely no qualms with him being in FPL managers' teams. And Mbeumo at 27%, again, very, very popular in the community because we expect him to play in that front three. Minutes very good, and likely the penalty taker with Ivan Toney being banned for the opening half of the season. So Mbeumo, again, perfect choice for your teams if you're looking for a price range there. And between Mitoma and Mbeumo, I probably would just favour Mbeumo. But again, all I have to see is a bit of magic from Mitoma in pre-season. I'm probably all back in on Mitoma. Last up, and certainly not least, is Mo Salah at 26% owned. Now, of course, this is the man that's breaking the budget right now in the team that I'm showing on your screens, and one that is absolutely dividing the community. As you can see right now, more are going without than actually having him. And it's simply because of Erling Haaland's price point and having someone like a Trent as well in the squad. For me, I'm going with no Mo Salah. I just don't see how I can squeeze him into the team when we have so many fantastic value midfielders like Saka, Rashford, Odegaard, Martinelli, to name a few. For me, although I made the argument about having Trent as the highest priced defender and coming down, in this case with Mo Salah, I just cannot justify having him in the team. I do think there could be Liverpool assets that will break out this year, maybe like a Luis Diaz or a Darwin Núñez in that front line, which I want to monitor closely. But just because of Haaland being so essential and having Mo Salah in your team kind of eradicates having an additional 8.5 or 9 million midfielder, I think he is an avoid in our teams, and I would probably take him out of your team as well, but let me know in the comments. That one is very close. Last up, moving into the forwards, and simply there are no words that need to be said about Erling Haaland. If you're one of the 15% that don't have him, you really do need to double think that one. He is going to be so highly owned from an effective ownership perspective, because of captaincy, it is just crazy to go without. And yes, then if he doesn't show the value that he had last season, then we can look to downgrade maybe to a Harry Kane. It's just not worth the risk in the opening game weeks. And Gabriel Jesus, 31%, currently the second highest owned forward in the game. I really like Gabriel Jesus. I know quite a few out there a little bit about him, but his underlying numbers were really good last year. Everything was funneled through him, and he was brilliant up until his injury. And I even thought after the injury, he was really, really good. The fixtures are great, and if you don't want to double up in the Arsenal midfield, this is an easy way for you to have a double up in the Arsenal attack. Again, how will Havertz impact him? Will Havertz be the one that makes late dashes into the box and Jesus hangs back? Maybe. But I really do like Gabriel Jesus in this team, and I prefer him over Ollie Watkins personally. And the third forward, and again, you won't be able to afford this one alongside the other two, is Nkunku, Chelsea's new man, who is likely to play as a bit more of a centre attacking mid, but nonetheless a fantastic goal threat in a Chelsea team that don't score goals, but we hope they do under Pochettino. Nkunku is the exciting pick, the really high ceiling pick, but once again, I prefer going for the 8 million forward, knowing that I can come down to Nkunku if he does tear it up against Liverpool and in game weeks 2 and 3 and beyond. Having that option just means that you don't have to sweat about it going for Gabriel Jesus, whereas if you start with Nkunku and Jesus hits the ground running, again, you might have to find that money to go up into him, and it might be very difficult. So that is the highest owned team, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now we're going to move on to a quick coverage of a highly owned team, template team that you can actually afford, and I really do like this team. Okay guys, so I teased you with a team that you simply couldn't afford. That was 11 million overpriced. Here is the template team reveal with a £100 million budget, and I really do like the balance of this squad. Pickford in goal at 4.5, the leading goalkeeper right now in that price range, and I like him as a goalie. He has all the attributes for high scoring potential, save points, bonus points, and even clean sheet potential under someone like Sean Dyche. Fixtures okay, so I do like him at that price range. And again, as we said, Areola leading the way at 4 million, and I simply think he's essential at that price bracket. Defence is stuck the same at the back three of Estupiñán, Shaw and Trent. You can afford these three at that template kind of price range, and I really do like them. Again, we don't have an Arsenal defender, and I would like him in this team, but again, from a template perspective, you're covering yourself off well with those three in your team. And in terms of the bench, we still got Botman in the team, but I did tell you about the potential price fall, so I would be a little bit worried about that. But Bell has replaced Trippier. That's 2.5 million cheaper, 22% owned. Of course, Luton's man, he played a lot of fixtures last year. We're not expecting much from Luton, but at 4 million, a player that we're expecting to get some significant game time, I like the investment in Bell. Other alternatives could be Baldock at Sheffield United, who's expected to get game time as well. He's also an option, but Bell looking like the template pick at 4 million. And I like that defence in general. I think it has a really nice contrast. You got the investment in Trent, you got the investment at 5.5, and then you have the other assets at different price ranges for you to go up and down. So I like the allocation there. Moving into midfield, again, from a template perspective, we have the players in the price ranges locked in. Rashford, Saka, Matoma and Mbeumo, we've touched on those. I think they are fantastic value. And importantly, you've got that investment at 8.5, at 9. I think that's a balance that you want in your teams. But interestingly, the one that sneaked into the team is going to be Maddison at 18%, 7.5 million. Now, there are a few ways you could go about this. You could go for a Phil Foden at 7.5 if he was to hit the ground running and play in that Kevin De Bruyne role. Or you could take the punt on Maddison at 7.5 and hope that Pochettino does get him clicking early doors in those opening fixtures. I personally slightly leaning towards Maddison as we speak, but I do like the Man City double up. And I think that's a really nice balance in the midfield because, again, you can go down from Maddison maybe to a cheaper one if you want to upgrade other areas of your team. And I think Maddison is one of those players that historically has been incredible from an FPL perspective. And if you can translate that into a Spurs shirt, he's one of those players I think's price could be 8 million in the blink of an eye. And you could raise some real value in that stock. Moving into the front line, simply Haaland and Gabriel Jesus haven't been replaced because we can afford them and there's just no reason to take them out of your teams. And Surridge is leading the way as a 4.5 million forward, but it is worth noting, at the time of recording, Balogun has not had his move yet, or Archer at Aston Villa. If either of those two were to move to a Premier League team and were looking like they were going to be the number one forward, those two suddenly massively jump up over someone like a Surridge. And that could break the game realistically, because if we get a starting 4.5 million forward, that could change everything about the draft. We might even see people go with Haaland and Balogun as their 2 forwards, and then they might be able to squeeze a Mo Salah into their midfield, and suddenly the team looks very, very template. But this is how the team is looking right now. This is the template team reveal. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think this is a very well balanced squad, and some of these are definitely in my draft that I'll be revealing later on this week. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope that it's provided some value and it's shown you a little bit of an idea on what the template team is looking like. If you can, smash that like button. It'd be massively appreciated. We're trying to hit 200. And again, I just want to say a massive thank you for the support you've shown so far. If you can, hit that subscribe button and join the journey this year. Again, I would be greatly appreciative. So thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out my most recent video. There's some good stuff in there, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.